I have prospered in every economy I've lived through. Recessions, layoffs, market crashes, and in 2025, it will be no different. Now, I'm not talking about luck and I'm not talking about hustle. It's a choice. It's a consciousness. And today I want to help you make that same choice. By the end of this session, you'll have 3 clear steps that you can start practicing today to align yourself with divine abundance. No matter what's going on around you, you can prosper. So if you're ready to prosper in 2025, drop a yes in the comments or in the chat. The reality we're in and why that doesn't define you. Let's be real about the times that we're in. We're hearing constantly in the news about job losses, shrinking retirement accounts, sky-high prices, political chaos. And if you've been feeling anxious, discouraged, or just plain tired, I get it. And you're not alone. But I want to remind you of something powerful today. You are not bound by the economy of this world. You are governed by a higher law. So let me tell you a story. I'm going to take you back to 2007. The tech bubble was bursting, the housing market was collapsing, but guess what I was doing? I was living my best life. Working by day, hanging out with friends at night, going out to different clubs, having watch parties. I don't know how many of you remember soul food from back then, but having just a good time. I wasn't even aware that the economy was close to collapse. And then in 2008, in the middle of the recession, I got a new job. A big move clear across the country. And that was my first time having a 6-figure salary. I didn't know at the time that I was working with a spiritual law, the law of assumption. The beautiful thing about divine law, spiritual laws, they work all the time. They are constant. I knew nothing about New Thought yet, but God is God always. And God's laws are always in effect. So while I didn't have the language for it, that law was working for me because divine laws always work. Just like gravity, you may not know how to calculate the speed that something is going to fall, but if you step off on a cliff, you are going to drop at that speed anyway. It doesn't matter that you don't know the law. Just like mathematics always works. 1 + 1 is always going to equal 2. 3 + 3 is always going to equal 6. It doesn't matter. That's just the way it is. And divine law is like that. So which law are we talking about today? The law of assumption. So what is the law of assumption? You may have heard of it as delulu thinking, right? We've seen a lot of that in social media. Delulu thinking, delusional thinking, thinking from the end. Or also you may have heard it as quantum leaping. Quantum leaping. It says this: whatever you assume to be true in your mind will eventually become true in your reality. Now, Neville Goddard, one of the great metaphysical teachers, is the one that coined the frame, the law of assumption. He even wrote a book called The Law of Assumption. And he said that if you assume a thing completely and confidently, your outer world must rearrange itself to reflect an inner truth. Now, one thing I want to say, there is a difference between thinking positively and assuming a thing completely and confidently. Assuming thing is not wishful thinking and it's not pretending. It is living from the end as if what you want is already done. It means you are acting that way. It means you are seeing that way. It means that you are believing wholeheartedly that this thing is happening right now in your reality. So, what is prosperity? I want to pause here because prosperity sometimes is misunderstood. We think about it as having stacks of cash, having a lot of like opulence around us. We have the big house, we have the luxury cars. But it's not about that, and it's not about keeping up appearances. Eric Butterworth, a Unity minister, coined it this way: prosperity is a consciousness that attracts abundance and opportunity. It's a flow. It's alignment. It's not limited by the things that you can accomplish. Do you get that? It is attracting to you everything you need when you need it. Everything you need, abundance and opportunity. It is knowing that you are sourced by the infinite, not your paycheck, not the income from your business, but from the infinite and the divine. And therefore, even in uncertain times, you can choose to operate from a prosperity consciousness. A prosperity consciousness. I want to say that again, what prosperity means, because it is so important to understand why getting into a prosperity consciousness is even better than having a bank account full of money. Because prosperity is a consciousness that attracts abundance and opportunity. That means it fulfills any need that you have at the moment in time that you need it. That is what true prosperity is, and that is the consciousness that I lived in and I continue to live in, and that you can live in as well. So how do we get into a prosperity consciousness? Well, the first thing I would ask you is, what do you see? How do you use your imagination? What is it that you're visualizing as you go through your day? We're always visualizing something. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to sit down and get silent, although that is a way in order to focus your visualization, but you're constantly visualizing things. When you see whatever it is you see, what is it that's in your imagination? Are you seeing lack? Are you seeing abundance? What are you painting in your mind? When I look back to 2008, I wasn't glued to fear. I was picturing joy and growth and possibility. And that's what unfolded in my life. So ask yourself, what images dominate your mind? Are you rehearsing worst case scenarios, or are you imagining breakthroughs? So let's try something for a few minutes. Let's take 30 seconds right now. So if you feel comfortable, close your eyes. See yourself thriving, confident, free, abundant. See it. See what it would look like as you are experiencing that. Hold on to that image and breathe into it. That's how it starts. You have to visualize, use your imagination to begin to see the end, to see what it is that you want your experience to be. Then think about, what are you saying? Because as the Bible says, the power of life and death is in the tongue. And your words give life to your thoughts. Your words energize your thoughts. They give them energy and they go out and seek what it is you speak. So as you're watching the news, as you're talking to your friends and your family, as you're caught up in conversations around the water cooler, we don't have those anymore at work. Are you breathing life into prosperity or into poverty? Into abundance or into lack? If you catch yourself saying, I'm broke, things are so expensive, I will never get ahead at this rate, you need to stop. Stop and reframe. Try saying this instead. I only see and experience abundance in everything I do, say, and touch. When you find yourself thinking in lack, thinking in destruction, catch yourself. Stop it and say a positive, opposing thought instead. And then watch your words. Don't let those words come out your mouth. If you can't think of anything to say in that moment, then just say nothing. Like if you're in the midst of a conversation where everyone is only talking about lack and limitation and how awful things are, see if you can quietly back out of that conversation, because you are trying to create and maintain a prosperity consciousness, because the law of assumption is always in effect, right? So you don't want to assume that things are going to be disastrous. You want to assume that things are going to be prosperous. Things are going to be abundant. Things are going to be well. Your words create your world. Type in the chat, what is one thing, one phrase that you know that you say that you're going to release? And what is one affirmation you can replace it with? Go ahead and type that in the chat or in the comments. The third step is, what do you believe? Because it's your beliefs that shape reality. Your beliefs are not fixed. They're formed. You form your beliefs. Steps 1 and 2 that we just talked about are ways that we form our beliefs. They're shaped by what you hear, say, and think repeatedly. Hear, say, and think repeatedly. We've talked about what you see. We talked about what you're saying. But the hearing part is important too, because what are you surrounding yourself with? What are you listening to? What are you allowing to penetrate and shape your thoughts? Something to put some thought into, and to think about how you can change your environment so that you can live from the end. Because if you're surrounded by lack, it's time to rewire that belief system. Start asking yourself, what is it that I want to believe? And when I was going through my experience in 2008, I wanted to believe that the world was mine, that anything I wanted, that if I wanted to change jobs, I could change jobs. If I wanted to go on a cruise, I could do that. That is what I believed, wholeheartedly believed that, and stepped into it. And that's what you need to do. What is it that you want to believe? And what would you believe if you trusted the divine completely? If you knew without a shadow of a doubt that everything you ask for is given. Ask and I will answer. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. Right? That is the truth. That is the truth. So what if you acted and believed as though that were true? Because it is. With practice, practicing your words, practicing holding these images in mind, your beliefs will shift. They will shift. And when they do, the things around you will also begin to shift. They have to. So it looks like I have a few questions in the chat. Let's see. One of the questions is, how do I apply the law of assumption when my reality is overwhelming? That's a good question, because what's happening in the world is happening in the world, and I'm in no way asking you to pretend like it's not happening. In 2008, I I just wasn't paying attention to what was happening. But if you are aware of what's happening, do not deny it's happening. Whether it's reality or not is your choice. But you don't have to let it define you. You get to build inner certainty one moment at a time. So you don't eat an elephant in one bite. You eat an elephant one bite at a time. So start small. If it starts small, think of one thing one thought you can rewrite. And assume abundance. When you catch yourself at the grocery store maybe, and you're looking at the prices and the thought in your head may come up that, gosh, this is more expensive than it was the last time I was here. Maybe in that thought to tell yourself to stop that thought. Just to stop that thought and just say, there is abundance in the world and there is abundance in my life. Because there is abundance in the world. You can see it in the number of grains of sand, in the number of blades of grass in your yard. Abundance is everywhere around you, and therefore it is available to you too. So starting small with just that thought when you're in the grocery store, to not dwell on the lack, not to dwell on the increasing price, but to dwell on the abundance that is surrounding you. Doing that bit by bit, it all adds up. Let's see, there's another question. What's the difference between the law of assumption and positive thinking? So I talked about this a little bit. Positive thinking can be passive, and it is good to think positively because dwelling in negativity does you no good. It will cause depression and stress. So I'm in no way saying that positive thinking isn't a good thing, but positive thinking can also lead to spiritual bypass if that's all you're doing. What we're talking about is being active with the law of assumption. With the law of assumption, you are not just using your thinking, but you are using your whole body. You are feeling, you are living as though that thing is yours. So you may think, how would I carry myself if I lived an abundant lifestyle? What are some of the decisions I would make when it comes to how I handle my money? What are some of the decisions I would make in how I distribute my money? How would I talk to people? How would I comport myself on my job or in my business? And begin to do those things. You're living in the end. So it's not just hoping. It's not just saying the right words. It's living from the end, and that difference, it changes everything. Let's see. What do I do when doubt creeps in? So yeah, it's easy to be filled with doubt. It's something that I think is just something that we live with in a society that's a little bit skeptical, right? We live in a society that can be a little bit skeptical, a little bit sarcastic, especially when it comes to things around taking ownership and taking agency and authority over what's happening in our lives, right? We're kind of taught to believe that things happen to us. And what we're talking about here today is us happening to things, right? So it may feel like when you're living from the end that you're lying to yourself or that you doubt it can happen. But I implore you to think of doubt as a visitor. Do not allow it to reside. Acknowledge it and then return to the vision that you are holding firm to. Acknowledge it. I hear you. I see you. Because sometimes doubt is just trying to protect you from what it thinks is pain that may come if it doesn't happen. But you're doing a new thing. You're doing a new thing. So doubt may creep in, but acknowledge it and then redirect your focus on what it is you want to experience. Can I use the law of assumption for other things like love, health, or achieving my purpose? And the answer is yes, because divine law is divine law. It applies to everything. And as I stated in my story, it applies even when you don't know that you're applying it. So yes, if you do these things, see it, speak it, believe it, for anything, then you can see the law of assumption at work in your life. And I think I have one more question that I want to talk about. What if I don't fully believe it yet? And that's perfectly okay. Start where you are, like we talked about earlier. Start where you are. Continue to speak those affirmations, the ones that we were talking about earlier, ones that you come up on your own. Speak them until they become familiar. When you first start saying your affirmations, they may feel untrue. They may feel very foreign coming out of your mouth, but the more you say them, the more familiar they will become, and the more real they will become, and the more belief you will have. So, all right, I think those are all the questions I want to address right now. But the thing that I want to remind you is that you get to choose. Like I said, life doesn't have to happen to you. It can if you let it, but you can happen to your life. So you get to choose. Will you live in the economy of this world? The economy of this world that is going on around us right now? Or will you live in the economy of your faith? Which do you prefer? I know what I'm choosing. See your prosperity. Speak your prosperity. And believe in your prosperity. And just watch what begins to unfold. If this message is one that resonated with you, if you think that someone else will benefit from this message, please like it, share it, drop a comment, because what I want you to know is that your divine potential is just waiting to be unleashed.